Justice E. Ogola is closely associated with his spouse, who serves in the Water Kenya Towers agency. The averments of our clients, Your Lordship, is that this is a matter that ought to have been disclosed at the inception of the proceedings.
You mean the judge is closely associated with the wife?
No, I didn't say that. No, I didn't say that. That is not my statement.
What is it that you said before?
In life, there is only one currency in politics, and that currency is called loyalty. There's no other currency. Loyalty to your cause, loyalty to the people who elected you, loyalty to your boss, and loyalty to what you stand for. If you have no loyalty, there's no other currency in politics.
Come to Fireside, the home of politics, policy, and polity. It's been a week which has been marked by high-level politics, and we're going to have a very high-octane conversation with Mr. Odoyo Owidi. Now, this gentleman called Rigathi Gachagua, how do you refer to him? Is he the impeached deputy president, or where is he in this entire legal situation? Where does he sit?
He's the former deputy president.
He's the former deputy president?
Yes.
Now, last week we were treated to high drama, and there's a concept in the US they call filibustering, especially in the Senate, whereby a senator knows that there's a motion they're supposed to discuss, and then a senator decides to speak for hours on end, not because he's adding value, but he wants to waste time. Would you say that is what Rigiji is doing right now?
Rigiji has a strategy because his initial agenda was to become the kingpin of the mountain. And I think his other hidden agenda was if he could ascend to power midway, that would have been much better because we have looked at his actions. But right now, his sojourn in the courts is simply buying time. I am not exactly sure what is buying time for, because what I want to imagine is buying time for, he would rather not bother trying to buy time for such things. It will not take him anywhere. He's also trying to win public sympathy because he has noticed not many people are responding to his allegations the way they ought to be responded to. He makes those allegations while the case still drags in court, and nobody seems to respond. And even when he's asked to go write statements, he's not doing it. For example, we were in court. What we were in court doing was trying to change who are going to listen to his case.
Recusal.
These very people had been on at a bench that listened to his case before. And there are 3 people. And I can tell you, it is his axis that demanded a 3-judge bench. And it was granted. After it's been granted, he's now demanding that they excuse themselves from the case and a new lot come. This is all time-wasting tactics.
In my view, some of the reasons advanced for recusal appeared to be voodoo thinking. Like, for instance, a lawyer for one of the parties says, wait a minute, we can't have Dr. Frida Mugambi as one of the judges. Mm-hmm. Reason being, she was Professor Kidure's master's student at Moi University. Mm-hmm. Then Professor Jera says, wait a minute, Moi University does not offer masters in the first case. Mm-hmm. And more important, Dr. Mugambi's master's is not from Moi University. It's from the University of Birmingham. Mm-hmm. So that is one of the reasons the parties were advancing for recusal. Then another reason given was that, wait, one of those judges in the panel has got a very close relationship with his wife.
With whose wife?
That the judge has got a close relationship with his wife. No, not any of the
wife of the one of the lawyers.
No, the wife of the judge.
Yes.
That the judge has got a close relationship with his wife. That Justice Ogola has got a close relationship with Mrs. Ogola. So that is one of the reasons for recusal. Then another one said, wait a minute, Justice Murima, that Speaker Amason Kingi attended your wedding and he gave you a gift. Now, in my view, that is the highest level of filibustering, that you just want to waste your time. And I saw those judges, the body language was telling that you guys are actually wasting time. And in as much as people regard a lawyer by the name John Haminwa highly, he kept on interrupting conversations at every stage. Would you say that Rigiji's lawyers developed a strategy to ensure that they're actually wasting time? Because when you speak to some lawyers and scholars, they say they want to drag on this matter for the next 3 years, so that we don't have a substantive deputy president for 3 years. Do you think this is a possibility?
First of all, you must know that courts and judges are not robots. They are human beings. They can see all that is happening and they can make a decision. In any case, it is out of respect that Judge Haminwa is allowed to...
Lawyer
Haminwa is allowed to make statements even without seeking serious court approval. And he's misusing that respect he's been granted because of his age. He is misusing it. I don't know what else he's fighting for right now. Now, about the relationships with judges, with the lawyers, with speakers, let me tell you, it looks like Rigiji has now decided that everybody in this country is against him, so that if a judge is related to anybody in the country, then there's a problem. But also remember, the people who voted Rigiji out of the National Assembly come from 281 constituencies. They come from almost 90% of the constituencies in Kenya. And these judges we are talking about must be coming from one of those constituencies. So there is definitely some sort of relationship. Most of these judges you see here, they went to school when there were only a handful of universities offering law, if not University of Nairobi only. So anybody they are going to meet in court, in the National Assembly, they must have met them in the line of their study, the line of their training, and the line of duty. So
Professor Gitu Mugai indicated that any lawyer in Kenya under the age of 50. Actually, his statement was that probability that are 3/4 of the lawyers in Kenya under the age of 50 are students.
Yes.
So does it mean that when he's appearing before a judge who is a student, does he recuse himself? It means he literally can't practice law in Kenya.
And also, bringing in names of speakers and spouses and MPs, does he mean that all these people are officially biased against him?
You know, that way is suggesting that the various judges do not have capacity for decisional independence. That if they see their friend stealing a cow, the fact that they are classmates or the fact that he came to his wedding, it gives that the judge now loses capacity to take a solid decision, a rational decision.
And in a court, what I expect, the complainants can complain about the respondents being related to the judges, or the respondents can complain about the complainants being related to the judges. But to talk about some people who are not even parties in a case, that they are related to some judge, I think is to get it all wrong. Otherwise, you'll always find somebody in the street and say he's related to one of the judges, so that is a problem. I think they are taking us for a joke. The court process is being misused. And in any case, I don't think the Kenyan courts have the intention of gagging the judiciary, the legislature. I don't think it is their intention to interfere with the role of the Senate nor the National Assembly at any point in time. The reason why these matters were going to go to court was to be procedural. But also, there are times when judges look at things and say, Mokua has come to court with very valid reasons about his case of election petition. But if we grant him his wish, is he going to win? No. Then I don't think we are going to waste the court's time or the Electoral Commission's time to take this matter back to the election. Those are some of the things that people look at. You may go and say, Owidi stole my votes, 6 of them, and I have beaten you with 2,000 votes. The judge will, okay, he stole, all right.
Yeah, but it's not material.
It's not material. So this is what we are having here. Even this case that now they are taking, that Rigiji was not given a chance to be heard in the Senate, is not correct. He was given a chance. For those who want to sympathize with him, will say that he fell sick. But for people who see through him, like me, will say he was running away from cross-examination. There is nothing as embarrassing to a person lying like cross-examination by seasoned lawyers. Even those who are not lying, because lawyers have these manners of asking you the questions you don't have an answer for. The questions you have good answers that you would wish that they ask you, they will not ask you. And they ask you questions in which they want one word answer, when actually an explanation would suffice. But they don't want the explanation. They want yes or no. So that kind of thing, just imagine you take Rigiji to the Senate, and on the other side is a seasoned lawyer,
James Orengo,
wanting to take him through his visit to the UK when his brother was sick, or wants to take him through the Kemsa debacle, or wants to take him through the shares. He would be very embarrassed.
So are you part of this group which suggests that, in fact, Rigiji did not fall ill, that he checked himself in the current hospital?
These ideas of only hospitals verifying that we are ill just came the other day. I grew up when it was very easy to tell somebody who is ill and somebody who is pretending.
Even if you're not a medical doctor like you are?
It's very easy, because experience is the best teacher, not the medical lecturer.
You could be having the wrong experience.
No. I don't have the wrong experience. I've been here long enough. I can see my children when they are lying or when they are saying the truth.
So when you saw Rigiji in the morning coming to the Senate,
yes,
with these lawyers, you saw a man in very good state of health.
Yes. But that is not my reason. You can fall, especially what he may have wanted to be seen to be suffering from, you can fall for it in a very short notice. But when he walked out of Karen Hospital, it was very clear that he wasn't sick. Very clear.
That is when you came to the conclusion,
yes,
that in fact he was not sick.
Was just running away from cross-examination.
So what factors in that conference led you to that conclusion?
You know, the body speaks. We have something called body language. I know you can speak Kikisi, Kiswahili, English, but there's a language you speak which you don't recognize. Body language. And the body language doesn't consult you when it wants to give you away to people observing you. It won't consult you that I want to. It won't. So it will just give you away. And again, the line of thinking and the way you disseminate the information is enough to tell somebody you are not sick after all. The statements you make, it means you just went to think. So from where I sit, Rigiji was earning 3 things by his running to hospital. 1, it was giving him a good reason to run to court. He was running from cross-examination by lawyers. He was giving him an opportunity to drag his exit, which has already taken place. So it is like, this is my baby, this is her baby, but because I know the baby is not mine, the baby is now Kithure's, I want the baby to be cut into 2. The day is now Kithure's, I want it to be delayed before King Solomon hands it to Kithure. That is a jealousy issue. Because Rigiji also knows from where he sits, even now as I'm talking here, that there is nothing he can tell the Senate to spare him. There is nothing he can tell the courts that will be different from what they are already thinking. And in any case, the courts do not have the power to reappoint him after the Senate has impeached him according to the Constitution.
What if we don't have the benefit of lawyers, but what if the High Court says that it repeats the entire process, they give some sort of a prescription? Would we get similar results, or there would be a change?
That's the worst that can happen, and it would worsen. If the Senate voted him out 3 counts, probably there would be now 6, 7, or 8. Or the percentages of voting will go higher. There is nobody sitting in that Senate who voted to impeach Rigathi or to affirm the impeachment of Rigathi who can change his mind if he went to speak. Because we have also watched him. Each time he opens his mouth to speak, he loses more supporters.
Actually, talking about the impeachment, the conversation is that before you take a decision that you're going through the impeachment process, you sit down and ask yourself, do we have the numbers? The moment you satisfy yourself that you have the numbers, that is when now you look for the reason, so that the procedure is seen to be, above board. So that even if the courts were to say, go back, I don't think there would be any change in the results, in the outcome.
Doing statistics and counting the number of MPs you have or the number of senators you have on your side to accept to go before them needs a logical thinker, not an emotional thinker like Rigathi. Rigathi is largely an emotional thinker. Even when he wants to convince people to go to his side, it is all emotional. You saw the way he displayed his traveling to Mombasa in KQ. It was all emotional, appealing to the emotions of the people. Mimi nateswa, unaona vile mimi nawachwa ni bebe sanduku yangu peke yangu. You see such kind of things. So Rigiji, from where I sit, does not have the frame of mind that will tell him, now count if you really have the people. Now, because this thing is largely political. It is not something you are going to sit and say, now I have convinced so and so to spare me because this is not true, this is right, this is wrong. Because by the time the National Assembly votes that you should appear before them for impeachment, they already decided. And they will have all the information with them. What you are bringing in is either additional information or you are bringing now evidence. There's nothing new you're going to bring before them.
Now, the National Assembly has already pronounced itself on these impeachments on 2 occasions.
Yes.
The Senate has already pronounced itself on this matter. And that the president, it's clear to everybody in Kenya that the relationship between President Ruto and his deputy is broken. I mean, people would say that it's irreparable.
Dismus, before even you go far, I really take offense when people treat Rigiji's impeachment as due to his differences with the president. Rigiji's impeachment is due to his differences with the Constitution of Kenya.
Can you elaborate that?
Rigiji's impeachment is due to his differences with the people of Kenya. His offenses are against the Constitution, not against the president. Even if we so want to say that he disrespected the president, he insubordinated the president, I don't think it was the president that is with him in the court of public opinion, in the judiciary, in the National Assembly or the Senate. It is the Constitution of Kenya, and it is the people who saw using the Bible to defend the Constitution of Kenya, who are now defending the Constitution of Kenya at the National Assembly, at the Senate, and now they have walked with him to the courts. He's enjoying himself. But I think when the game will be over, because finally the game will be over, and the judges are watching and listening, and they already know what I know, that is just buying time and wasting court's time and misusing the court process.
You've actually addressed what I wanted to say. Very clear that he cannot work with President Ruto.
Definitely.
The National Assembly, the people's representatives at a national level have said, we have no confidence in you. The Senate has said, we have no confidence in you. What is the probability of the courts taking a departure from those 3 facts?
The courts can, that is, I told you, these courts are not manned by robots. They are human beings with logical thinking. And they have thought through this thing and seen that even if you wanted to help him, he wants to deputize. He wants to be the principal assistant of a person he has accused of trying to assassinate him. Of a person he has accused of multiple things. Let me tell you, even there are some accusations which are not direct. For example, when Rigiji comes and wants to take himself as a truth teller, and in the background, he's inciting Kenyans to call the president a liar. That is the height of disrespect. That is the height of I don't know what to call it. Because Rigiji coining himself as a truth teller, when he doesn't even tell the truth, he only says what nobody would want to say, things that I would be embarrassed to say. He's trying to think that the president is not a wise man, or we are not.
Because Rigiji indicates that in the entire cabinet, because he's the only one who is elected alongside the president, that he is the only one who has got capacity to call out the president. That is the only one who has got capacity to tell the president that I disagree with your policies. But there's a bigger conversation. That if you're a member of the cabinet, there's this concept they say collective responsibility.
Yes.
That you are seated in the cabinet room, you debate policies, and you agree on a particular policy position. Then as soon as you step out of the cabinet, you start criticizing that very policy that you've participated in making. And you remember during President Kenyatta's time, the deputy president did not have a specific mandate. But this time round, Rigiji had been given very specific responsibilities around tea, around coffee, around milk, around matters of devolution, alcohol. So you agree on a policy position. Then as soon as you get out of the cabinet, you start criticizing that cabinet position. It has been reported today that he attended a church service somewhere in Kiambu, and he's saying that Kenyans are overtaxed. He's saying that the economy is broken. He's saying that people are unhappy. So I'm wondering, you've been the deputy president for 2 years. How come you do not want to associate with all the decisions which have been taken during the last 2 years when you are a member of the cabinet, when you chaired a number of the cabinet committee meetings, and you are in the middle of the decision-making process? What does that tell us about his leadership skills?
No. Rigiji had left the president on his own long time ago. There is also something that is unwritten, the code of conduct for a person in cabinet or a person deputizing the president. The code of conduct. If you really don't agree with him, walk out of his government. Rigiji is clinging to this narrative that I was elected. And I have asked them to show me in the constitution of Kenya where it is said that a DP will be elected. Only the president said will be elected. The only thing that the constitution goes to say that the president will nominate his running mate before the elections. The person being, even today, without any dispute, we are hearing in the United States, Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. Those two are fighting. We are not hearing their running mates. They are the ones to be elected. These people are just going to be their principal assistant. It is like going on a journey and you are carrying a spare wheel, just in case. The Constitution of Kenya decided that we carry a spare wheel for the presidency, considering the path we had walked before. Where at one point you find some people are trying to fight for the presidency when the president is suddenly unavailable. So why don't we have a running mate who would take over in his absence, physically, mentally, or whichever way he will be absent? So for Rigiji to come and claim that he was elected with 72, there is nowhere also in the Constitution where one vote can elect two people.
Actually, even going through the American model about the presidency, the framers of the U.S. Constitution said the only reason why you have a running mate is to save the country from another presidential election in case the office falls vacant within the 4-year period. And they said that if you're a good running mate or if you're a good vice president, what you are supposed to do is when you wake up in the morning is to establish whether your principal is alive. If he's alive, you go to the office, you've got your cup of tea and you fill the crosswords and you wait for instructions.
You are a spare tire. That is the quickest way of explaining the whole idea. Because some of the claims that I hear in this Rigiji case, I don't see them in deputy governors' cases. And yet we were told that the governor and his deputy are a mirror reflection of the president and his deputy in a diminished form, with a small jurisdictional area to govern. But, for example, I had some lawyers claiming that that seat of Rigiji must be declared vacant by IEBC. Let me tell you, even the IEBC, even if they were the ones who declare it vacant, they would need to get that information from Parliament, from the horse's mouth. And the Parliament that does it is the Senate. And the Senate had done it.
As we talk about reviewing the Constitution, is there a case of removing the running mates so that after an election, then the president decides whoever he deems fit to be the deputy president?
I think there are certain things. If you are a DP, you are a principal assistant to the president. If it is the president you disagree with, not the Constitution, not the people, not your duty, then I think you should go home at the request of the president.
But you know, Kenyans have not embraced.
You cannot be an assistant to your enemy. Rigiji has demonstrated time and again that the president is now his enemy, even before the impeachment began. I remember Rigiji is the only person who sits in cabinet who praised the Gen Zs for what they did, who thanked the president for listening to the Gen Zs. It is only him, because he was with them all along. He was on their side all along. And when people suggest that he was the key organizer of Gen Zs, I tend to believe.
Would you have evidence to support those allegations that he was with Gen Z all along?
I would have if I investigate, and I know the investigation is underway.
You know, Rigiji can easily take you to court for character assassination.
And I will tell him, this thing, you are my first suspect, let's investigate and find if you are not. If you are not, then you are not. But my suspect, to me, is a suspect. From his statements, from his actions, and many other things that happen. You know,
now, since you are suspecting him, you know, recently...
It is not illegal to suspect somebody.
No, it's not illegal. Yeah. Recently, Rigiji was invited by DCI to go and register, record a statement around the statements he made during his press conference at Karen Hospital. And since you also suspect him for Gen Z, why can't you present yourself to a law enforcement, institution, branch, and register your suspicion?
From where I sit, I know there's an investigation going on. So I don't have to do it.
You don't have to present yourself.
I don't have to present In any case, what I will tell them, they already know. But what I will tell them I saw that make me think he's a suspect, they also know it. They saw it. And I'm sure if they are up to the task and doing their job, the investigation is still going on.
Now, when you look at the trajectory, what are the likely options? Because I understand that Rigiji's legal advisors and lawyers have actually gone to the Court of Appeal. They're unhappy with the ruling by the High Court. So it seems like there's going to be a lot of permutations and combinations. And there's one school of experts that have suggested that we may not have a deputy president for the balance of these 3 years. Is that a possibility?
That is just wishful thinking. They are just wishing that happened. Because, you see, they are going to court with very many things, including why you are telling me they are going to Court of Appeal, isn't it?
Yes.
They were in the High Court. I don't think they are taking the matter of swearing in of Kindiki to the Court of Appeal. It can still be dealt down here as he goes to the Court of Appeal with those his many other complaints. He can go. But this matter of swearing in Kindiki must be dispensed with here. In any case, if he still wants redress, that there was something that was wrong that was done to him, he can continue chasing it in court as Kindiki serves Kenyans. Because he cannot hold Kenyans at ransom. You know why it was said that the presidential election petition will be decided within 14 days from the date of filing it, and 21 days from the date the announcement is made? It's because of such mischief. And I think the judges should read why the presidential petition was fixed to the Supreme Court and given timeline. Because the country cannot remain with one of the members of the presidency away. Let's say the president. And one of the reasons why the constitution drafters even went ahead to give him a standby president, a spare will president, is because the country cannot stay with one for an extended period of time. So in the event that president fell sick today, and now we don't have a DP, what do? We must decide on having a DP as Rigathi Gachagua goes to his court. If it is possible to reinstate him as the DP, then it is also possible to remove Kindiki as DP one day if he wins. So let's have Kindiki sworn in and he fights in court. If he's lucky, because that's only a miracle can do, that the courts decide that is removed, and I don't know what powers they will be using, then we can remove Kindiki. But for now, we need a DP and Kindiki must be sworn in. And if there's a case stopping his swearing in, that is the one we need to deal with now. Mm-hmm. And after it is done, we then swear him in and he can continue in court. And let me tell you, if Kindiki is sworn today, Rigiji will withdraw all those cases he's wasting his money on all along. And I don't know why he's trying to fight a government that is using public resources in courts and is using private resources.
But he's a wealthy man.
He's a time waster. He's a wealthy man, but then
and
we may want to investigate what he declared as his wealth then.
Now, there's an interesting aspect. You recall a gentleman by the name Professor Bitangi Ndemo.
Exactly, a brilliant man.
Yes, at some stage he put together a piece and he said when he left the public service, he had challenges with his mobile phone.
I read it.
Yeah, that nobody called him all the time. So when he was a PS, he actually thought people were calling him. He did not realize that people were calling the office. Would you say that is how Rigiji is feeling today? That he's got the number of calls maybe from 100 per day, they have dropped maybe to 10. Now, the reason why I pose that question, the way the National Assembly behaved, members of the National Assembly, their behavior and their comportment, the Senate and their comportment, even at the High Court and even the service he has attended today, the majority of members from elected leaders from Mount Kenya, one can easily venture, say, up to 99% are not keeping his company. What are you reading from that?
Do you know, Rigiji is just a person who is unable to evaluate himself. He's a person who has overrated himself.
But have you ever met him one-on-one, had an interaction with him?
I met him. We once went to State House as Luos who are in government in the very beginning. Very early. Mm-hmm. And do you know, throughout, the guy was just not in that conversation. Mm-hmm. When we were walking from the back garden to the front to take a photo, I tried to engage him in a conversation. You can't. He had a disdain for us. That I can tell you. Mm-hmm. But let's go back and say this. Let's pretend that it was Raila Odinga who was in court. Would the streets around the city center be passable?
I don't know, tell me.
Rigiji thinks he's so popular in Mount Kenya or anywhere else in Kenya. He is not. He is not. In fact, as soon as it will be clear that all his avenues are blocked. Even those people who are frothing in the mouth in Muranga, Nyeri, saying, oh, that DP, take it to Sugoi, take it where? They will forget about it so quickly, and they will embrace the new DP so fast, he will be so hurt.
So are you suggesting that Rigiji is a paper tiger?
He's overrated himself. Let me use that, because that is the language that I can explain. When I'm put down, explain what you meant by this. He has overrated himself. There is nobody even protesting on his own somewhere before a camera and recording and protest. Nobody is protesting, because who knew Rigiji before President William Ruto elevated him to be his running mate? Who knew him? He was just one of those first-time MPs who could talk.
One-time MPs.
Yeah, he was a first-time MP, and President William Ruto is the one who nominated him to be his DP. The Mount Kenya people did not elect him to be the DP. But once he was nominated to be the DP, as Ruto is getting elected, he would then be sworn in as the
deputy president.
The deputy president.
Because I've had conversations with a number of people from Mount Kenya. I mean, depending on a number of the socioeconomic group, there's a group that you describe as Jolwedo.
Watu wa mikono.
Yeah, watu wa mkono. Then there's the elite. And all of them seem disinterested. They're indifferent. They're not bothered. In fact, when you introduce the conversation, they get annoyed, they become furious, and they even want to walk away from the conversation. So it would appear that the perception he had created, that is a very powerful man, it was all on sand.
And what will worsen the situation is when people will discover that the narratives they had made to besmirch the president, to ensure that the president's name is bad, is what even made him get some little support. People were seeing him as somebody being persecuted by a president who has overtaxed us, who has done ABCD. But all this were planned by them. And that is what was giving him some clout. But let me tell you, when they will discover his true nature, they will not even want to see him. He will be less popular than me even in that Mount Kenya of his.
Yeah, because, people have indicated that the person who is, this impeachment, the person facing the impeachment is not, is actually regarding Gachagua and not an entire community. That it's one person who has assaulted the Constitution, who has failed to understand what Article 147 is all about, who has brought around this narrative called shareholding, which is against Chapter 6 and Article 10, which makes other Kenyans feel that they are not Kenyans. The moment you keep on talking about shareholders in Kenya, there are many Kenyans who feel that they are not Kenyans. But I'm wondering, how come you people in the administration, you did not call him right from the word go and warn him and tell him this narrative is unacceptable? Why did you give him 2 years?
Personally, as an individual, I explained the way Rigiji's shares thing. I only limited it to forming the government. And my statement was like this. The ruling party is the party which wins the election. And that party which wins the election forms government. Because at one point I thought he was talking about parties. That parties with shares, parties which don't have shares. But I later realized he was not talking about parties. He was talking about communities and regions. Then that is where we parted ways. Actually, we parted ways even before his impeachment came. And I said, it's on record, that we can...
Where can we find that record?
I will show you the record and the date. That we cannot have shares belonging to certain communities and not belonging to others. These agreements that are signed before election, these pre-election agreements, are signed between political formations, political parties and alliances. But they cannot be signed between communities. And why did the law allow them to be signed between political alliances and political formations? Because already that law had insisted that political parties must be national, must have the face of Kenya. In fact, before you have offices in 24 counties, your party cannot be registered. Because that is now already more than half of the counties in Kenya. That is what the law did. The law wanted political parties to be the face of Kenya so that when you have agreements, political agreements, you are having Kenyans agreeing with each other. But when you are talking about communities, it will be Kenyans disagreeing with each other. So Rigaji's share thing was meant between communities and regions. The ones the law envisages is meant between political formations. And that is where we had the problem. But again, also, when you are serving in government, and at that point in time, Rigiji is still the DP, that means he's your boss by law. Mm-hmm. There's only so much you can say about him. There's only so much you can oppose.
So his impeachment has given you a level of freedom?
Because now he's no longer the DP. But even it had reached a time that he had just to go. There was no other way. Now, because when you disagree with my bigger boss, then I disagree with you.
Automatically?
Automatically, we can't. Even in military, we know who is more senior. When your immediate supervisor says yes, and your more bigger officer says no, mm-hmm. you go with him.
Now, would you say that Mount Kenya has embraced the Kithure Kindiki? Or in fact, is Mount Kenya supposed to embrace Kithure Kindiki? Is Kenya supposed to embrace Kithure Kindiki if the National Assembly has already pronounced itself?
I have said a lot of things about Kithure Kindiki. But there are two that I would want to repeat. One, regional unity is a good thing because those regional unities can be put together to bring national unity. National unity is a very good thing, but we cannot have national unity where only one region keeps benefiting. Similarly, we cannot have regional unities where only one community keeps benefiting. If Mount Kenya has to remain united, it's a good thing. I agree with Rigathi. Mount Kenya should be united. But not united that their leadership is always from Mount Kenya West. It is time it went to Mount Kenya East. It is time we copied the Tanzanians. Tanzanians, their best presidents have been from minority communities. One was Nyerere, the other one was Magufuli. They have come from very minority communities, and they did very well because they know the rest of the country. They owe it to the rest of the country to remain in office. But people who come from very large communities have this sense of self-entitlement. There's an entitlement which they have, like the one Rigiji was walking around with, telling us that he gave President William Ruto 47% of the votes. He gave. Yet he knows he has only one vote, which he casted in public.
Yeah, but how come when thinking of possible candidates for the deputy presidents, President Ruto did not consider candidates outside Mount Kenya? Kisii, Wajir, Moyale.
He did consider, but after considering, he realized to make his winning much easier, he needed somebody from Mount Kenya because Mount Kenyans had shown him that we can follow you. He could have easily taken one from Luoland or from Luyaland, let's be tribal for a moment, to make the point get home. But he realized that even if he took one from there, you only go hunting where there are animals to hunt. It was only in Mount Kenya where there were people who were ready to follow him if he embraced them. The Luo, at that point in time, had their son on, and they were not willing to listen to anyone. The Luya were relatively divided.
No, we are not talking about the last elections. Mm-hmm. We're talking about now, when Rigiji has already been impeached. So the president is already in office, and he's got a blank check. He can nominate whoever he deems free from anywhere, provided they meet the bare minimum.
When you have a blank check, you must use your honesty to write the correct figure on that check. I know President William Ruto at this point in time has a blank check to appoint his deputy, but there is also something. There was a time in this country when President William Ruto and Uhuru Kenyatta were elected to the presidency, and Uhuru Kenyatta was elected the president, and Ruto was his deputy. And the people of Mount Kenya promised that give Uhuru 10, we will also give you 10. And President William Ruto kept that promise because the Kikuyus kept the promise. It is not Rigiji who kept that promise. It is the people of Mount Kenya who kept their promise that you supported our son, we will support you. President William Ruto is also keeping his promise to them that you give me full support, I will also give you full support. The support President William Ruto has given that region because it is the winning party that forms government. He has made so many of them CSS, and he has made one of their own a DP.
Would you say is cabinet, the cabinet composition, principal secretaries, parastatal heads, they have the face of Kenya, that when a Kenyan looks at that composition, they see themselves in the makeup?
They see themselves in the makeup, but also you must also know something, that it is the ruling party that forms government. But service to the people is done equally and equitably to every corner of this country.
You just indicated that Kenya is a tribal society. So when people
and I can't run away from it.
Yeah, when people are looking at the cabinet, they want to see a son or daughter from their village. Mm-hmm. So do all these tribes in Kenya see their sons and daughters?
They are largely appointed in cabinet and in government, largely equitably. What people want to see, that every tribe is represented. But look, there is one community that has 5 million people. There is one which has 200,000. How are you going to share 22 cabinet positions?
Equality and equity. There are those two principles, equality and equity.
Equity. Yeah. But what are we going to, who are we going to give positions equally? Is it communities, regions, or political parties?
Obviously,
President William Ruto decided that he would go for political formations. I call them political formations because they can be alliances, they can be political parties, or they can just be makeshift organizations around a political belief. And he decided to reward them according to how they voted. And that is acceptable because it is, even when you go to the US today, if Democrats win, the cabinet will all be from Democrats. That is what happens.
No, yeah,
but the work to the people of the United States will be equitably and equally. Kenya today, that is what President. You saw when, immediately after elections, Nuland had only one CS. But the president was there every other day doing to those people what he's doing to the rest of Kenya. Because he is under law, under obligation, under the constitution to equitably serve all Kenyans. And he did it. If there is any president who has kept all his promises to everyone, it is President William Ruto. Forget about the political mud painting that has been going on, that you have seen that even companies that are respected the world over, when they come to Kenya, you want to paint them like they are as dark as charcoal so that we get at the presidents. We cannot accept this.
Now, all appointments in Kenya, or rather most of the appointments made by the president, you confirmed that there is a political consideration. What are the likely 2027 scenarios? What are the names likely to feature as running mates?
One thing, number one, you must...
I'm asking this question to an objective Odoyo.
I'm going to be very objective with you. But the rider is, a day in politics is a long, long time. First of all, it can even be another person from Mount Kenya. And I don't see why it would not be Kindiki. Because number one, the people of Mount Kenya will still be with William Ruto. William Ruto has not offended any one of them. He has only apologized that I gave you this, I gave you Rigiji to represent you, But he has not only disappointed me, but has also disappointed the Constitution of Kenya. And the people who swore to uphold the Constitution of Kenya has decided to punish him by removing him from that office. That is what has happened. The impeachment of Rigiji has nothing to do with the people of Mount Kenya. It has nothing to do with the people who voted for William Ruto. It is Rigiji who is being impeached.
He cooked his own goose.
Yes. He decided that he wanted to run as fast as Simon Makonde. I think he was admiring the way his best friend, Mutahi Kahiga, became the deputy governor. He thought there is a way in which the president can walk away, resign, be incapacitated, be unavailable, so he walks in to become the president. That is what I was seeing.
He was looking at instant coffee.
He was looking at getting to the presidency without sweating for it. That is what I saw. If anybody saw it differently, that's fine. So in 2022, it is 2027, it is possible we are going to still have a running mate from Mount Kenya, and I think it is going to be Kithure Kindiki. There's no good reason it should go anywhere else. As from Ziwa, the Lake region, we are all going to be behind President William Ruto. What he has done to that region, forget about that I come from there. Nobody else has done it to them since 1963. Nobody.
What has he done?
You know, during the 2022 voting, the region where the president got the least votes is that region. But after the voting is over and the competition is over, it is now time to work. He has decided to work with those people like they are the ones who voted for him most. Today, there are 3 flags running into Luland. Forget about into ODM or any other party. Running into that region. 3 and they are not just flags. They are very powerful flags. You can hear them flapping even when you are asleep. Those are the type of flags. Attorney General, Finance, Energy. And you know, people don't know that after Finance, the only other CS whose check you can take to the bank is Energy. Energy is one place where you sleep now with 10 bob and you wake up with 10 billion. Energy. Oil is like currency. Electricity is like currency in any nation, not only Kenya. And when that is under you, you can talk about it. And we largely take care of internal security. So I think the president has shown those people that work with me, I work with you. And I can tell you, they will work with him. Those people will work with him. I know there are certain politicians from that region who have started a campaign to tell those people that, you know, we are not in this government because there was no MOU. You cannot have intercommunity MOUs, or you cannot have a community having an MOU with the government. Those people are with the president. They don't need an MOU. In any case, there are many people in this country who are living in come-we-stay relationships, and they are better than those who wedded and have pen to paper in the form of marriage certificates. Those people from that region with no marriage certificate, with no agreement, with no MOUs, are feeling more loved by the president than anybody else. So,
to use your words, in 2027, are you going to support President Ruto because you have 3 flags? Or because Baba is likely to say so? Or because of the Maendeleo that Anyango and Akinyi have actually seen and feeling on ground?
None of those 2.
No, I said 3.
The reason, I was with President William Ruto even before he appointed these other people. Before he appointed these people, I was shooting from his corner. Even from 2013 to 2017, I was with President William Ruto. The only break is that I wanted to run for an MP in my home constituency. Running for an MP in my home constituency meant I could only win if I ran on ODM. But I realized in ODM, the criterion they used, I don't fit. The criterion they used, I could only fit if I worked with people like President William Ruto and such, I would not fit that one of ODM. They use a different criteria, which doesn't fit people like me.
So what is going to change in 2027?
Nothing. 2027, the only thing I said here, which probably you don't know, those people, I know them. They have followed me into President William Ruto's government. They have followed us into President William Ruto's government. And they are not going to get out. Because they have learned. For example, now, even if Azimio won, I don't think they would be respected with the Ministry of Finance. I don't think they would have been respected with the Ministry of Energy. Worst of all, they would have not seen the office of the Attorney General. So all of these offices they have seen in President William Ruto's government, I don't think they are going to just throw them away and say, we deserved it was ours. No, they are also going to reciprocate. In any case, in the future, they would also wish President William Ruto to put a good word for them to Kenyans to vote one of their sons or daughters.
So what you're describing here is the real politics.
The real politics.
It's not theory.
I am a politician. So, and anybody doubting President William Ruto's second term can continue doubting. It's just a doubt. But President William Ruto is going to be a 2-term president. And the best is yet to be seen. Why I say the best is yet to be seen? If you see people who want instant coffee, those are people who cannot govern a country. This is one country where you see very educated people telling you that, but President William Ruto promised us that he's going to manage the economy within 100 days. When people are campaigning, their promises, their covenants, their pep talks, their agreements, all those are there. Then they pick things which generally in campaigns are pep talk. Suggestions. Their suggestions are also there. They pick things which are generally suggestions and go and treat them as covenants. When they know, educated people who know the financial circle of a nation, the financial year of a nation, how it goes. First of all, you have to plan. Then you budget. Then the budget is only done once in a year with supplementaries. And then, so you find some of the projects they expected to change this economy would need 2 to 5 years to implement successfully. But they want it overnight. It is like they are thinking the president has the power to say, tomorrow, contractor, go on the site and do this. Yet they will complain of breaking procurement rules. Yet they will complain for not planning. In this country, it is illegal for any agency or executive officer to do any project without proper planning. It is illegal. We have to plan. And again, things must be done with the money. So when you get into a government and you find you collecting money and the money is going to pay debts that went into projects that you can't explain, then your promises can be forgiven because you believed you'd have this to do them, and that is not there. So what has he done? He's just said, let's implement them at a pace which Kenyans can afford.
For Mura, Wanjiku, and Alima, when they elect you into office, they don't want you to come and start explaining the problems. Mm-hmm. They are looking for solutions. By their votes, they gave you agency. They gave you capacity to take decisions. So who is interested in all this conversation you're telling us about, that when I took office, there was public debt, we don't have resources for capital expenditure, we've got an over-bloated public service, global supply chain disruption because of COVID. Mura is not interested in you describing the problem. Mura wants a solution. Actually, Mura wants instant coffee.
Okay. I know Mura wants to see results. But a Mura who is intelligent enough to demand to see results should also be intelligent enough at least to ask herself that what is this magic wand that President William Ruto has, which Kibaki never had, Uhuru never had.
But when you are campaigning, you made us believe that as soon as you're sworn into office, we'll start seeing miracles right from the word go.
Exactly.
So we want to see those miracles.
How do you see miracles when from day one, Azimio was in the streets for 1 year? After
As a leader,
Azimio left the streets, the Gen Zs went to the streets, of course, with their commander.
but as a leader, you are supposed to manage that turbulence.
Exactly.
You are supposed to manage Azimio. You are supposed to manage Gen Z. Mora is interested in the outcome.
And do you know now how we are managing it? We are removing anybody who was behind Gen Zs who is in government by way of firing and impeachment.
But
there are people who are... You see...
Have you addressed the income levels?
Income levels we can't address without development. It is this development the president is doing. Let me tell you. Take, for example, in Homa Bay. When we went to Homa Bay when the president was coming, I went there a day before and interviewed the men in the streets. There are gentlemen who told me that since the affordable housing projects began in Homa Bay, they have always had more than enough to eat and entertain themselves. And the project is still going on. What they are saying, these projects that were brought to Homa Bay has ensured that we have employment, we have income. And you know, at that point in time, there were 4 national government projects going on in Homa Bay. There were the tarmacking of the town roads. There was the building of fish market. Homa Bay is the town that needed a fish market more than any other town in this country. Then there was a building of a pier. Do you know Homa Bay to Kisumu by water transport would take 25 minutes. By road, it takes 1.5 hours. And that 1.5 hours at good speed. If it is a matatu speed, it will be 2.5 to 3. So all these things are being done so that development comes, so that incomes grow. But as we struggle to do them, some people are in the streets interrupting them. When we deal with these interruptions, the one of Azimio ended, we dealt with it. The one of the Gen Z has ended, we dealt with it. So we want Kenyans to sit and watch. Because even President William Ruto will one day tell you, I was trying to do the exam you gave me to do in 5 hours, and you kept on interrupting me that I effectively had only 2 hours to do it. Nevertheless, I am going to do it in this next 5 hours you are going to give me. But if somebody you've given him 5 hours and you, after 2 hours, you tell him he has failed, I think you're also getting it wrong. But President William Ruto's biggest problem, he did not realize he was trying to work for Kenyans when the person who was resisting his work was right his principal.
But is the Swahili saying that siku njema huonekana asubuhi?
Yes.
Ikifika saa 7 saa 8,
siku njema huonekana asubuhi, but your enemies will never see it with you. They will try everything to spoil that siku njema yako. If the people of Kenya were left without being told sijui Adani is bad, without being told sijui taxes is this, without being told that, to see it, by now they would be seeing very brilliant orange fruits, red fruits, blackberry. They would be seeing beautiful fruits.
Kenyans would be having red roses.
I'm telling you.
All over.
I'm telling you. But you can't interrupt somebody doing work for you and expect to see the fruits of his labor instantly. It is not possible. Let me tell you, for example, this thing called Adani. It is something that is actually very annoying. The other day, I had very educated people telling us that Ketraco had budgeted for about 60 billion to do what Adani is going to do. How come Adani wants to do it for 90 billion? Let me tell them, I am a parastatal head. We will do a feasibility study and indicate the cost of doing work. If the government gives us that money to implement that project, say it was 50 billion, we will do it for 50 billion. But if the government is going to have somebody do it with his money, then pay later, how would you do something for me at cost and expect nothing out of it? If the job was to be done for 60 billion, Adani is going to do it for us over a period of 30 years, and we still expect just to pay them. That's 60 billion. Are we honest? There are variations, there is interest, and there is their profit.
And in my view, the public-private sector partnership has been characterized by misinformation and disinformation. Mm-hmm. There's everybody and anybody is offering an opinion, And most of those opinions are voodoo opinions because they don't understand even what PPP means. The guys you're talking about who are making those suggestions, when you ask them to break it down, they'll actually start yawning. Because they don't know what it means. You're getting a private sector company come with their human resource, their talent, and also come with money.
Their finance.
They're coming with finance. And it's going to take a period, say, of 20 or 30 years. They don't understand. Even some people are claiming that when Adani comes to Kenya, that 100% of their labor is going to come from another continent. So simply they don't understand. Because when Adani is coming to Kenya, obviously, the top managers have to be the Adanis. But they're going to retain a lot of local talent. They're going to come in with Forex. So I think part of your challenge in the administration is fighting misinformation and disinformation. Because one of the biggest challenges with the Kenya Kwanza administration, you are doing an amazing job, but you are like a man who is in love with a girl in a dark room. So you are winking in the dark. So you can wink the entire night, but the girl has no idea of what you are doing.
No, we have decided as individual politicians in UDA to take personal responsibility in informing the people. For example, when I went to a funeral in my village and I had the crowd, I asked them, if you want to build your own house, you take a pen and a piece of paper and budget. Mabati, the timber, then the labor, all of them, and you find that it is 200,000. And then you discover you don't have 200,000. You look for somebody who has his own money and his own fundis to come and build for you. Are you still going to give him the 200,000?
It has to be higher.
It has to be higher. It has to include even his profit. It has to include the cost of money because he's using his own money. If he was using your money, you just add the profit. But if he's using his money, he will charge you interest. And then if he's doing it for you, he will need also his profit. So profit and interest. In fact, I am surprised that the budget Ketraco had before did not double. I am surprised.
Why are you surprised?
Because I expected it, the worst it could be was just to double. Because this person is bringing his own money, it means he will need interest. Because he's investing his money. And this person also needs his profit generally. Because he will be paying his staff, he will be using his expertise. And then people are making noise because they know they are talking to a society which is largely ignorant. And then the few people who can see through their tricks are refusing to explain this to Kenyans. And let me tell you, the people who are insisting that we should not employ private companies like Adani, even in the Kenyan airport, we have had NAS. They are, for time as long I can remember, doing things that they could also do directly. We have so many things that are being done by private companies, private partners. Now, people have even argued that why don't we use a Kenyan company? Which Kenyan company has 90 billion to invest? Which one do you know?
I have no idea.
And there are also very many countries in the world which has used Adani. But I know they have gone and looked for places where they have been accused. Not where they have been convicted, where they have been accused. Any giant business must be accused. Even Microsoft has been accused. Even Barclays has been accused. All these blue chip company, number one companies, they have been accused one way or the other. And it is all out there in the internet and everywhere else. So if you want to paint a company black, go and look for any accusations they have had. Even if you find 100 and there are millions of places where they have successfully done projects and no accusations, you leave those ones out. Let me tell you how people do things. Have you seen these things people call potea pata? This is I invest 10 bob, get $1 million. Charity sweeps, such things. Do you know, they only tell you about those who win. They don't tell you about the millions who bought those tickets and didn't win. And anybody listening thinks everybody is winning. And they keep on investing their money. So again, if you come to Kenya and all you want to tell people is Adani was once in this country and they were accused of this, Adani was once doing this project, and you find there are 5. You are forgetting about the millions of projects they have done successfully. And you know, Kenyans have this bad manners. Whenever they see somebody hold an office, their first instinct is that that person is eating there. Kuna kitu anakula huko.
But is that not almost always?
No. There are people who go to offices to work, and they do the work properly and do the work honestly.
You know, we are told that, especially when you talk about devolution, that you'd find an MCA, or rather a gentleman, somebody before an election, he cannot afford a cup of tea at a 5-star hotel.
Yes.
But 1 year later, he can buy that 5-star hotel without harnessing the factors of production. So don't you think Kenyans have got, if they suspect that public servants of rank are stealing, it's a fair observation?
Kenyans have this bad manners of listening to politicians who tell them lies more. You see, like today, Kenyans really want to tell us that they really believe in devolution. Yet, if you want to start counting for them the messes devolution has brought to this country, you can't believe it. If the politicians started telling them those messes, they would want devolutions to be repealed tomorrow. From where I sit, I would have wished we did not devolve governments. I would have wished we devolved resources.
So are you suggesting that we did a devolution of corruption?
We devolved centers of corruption. You find in
47 centers of corruption.
In a county, a function is being held that costs the county 6 million. That time, there is no medicine in hospital. That time.
A function, you mean an event?
An event. A function, an event. That you find red carpet, speakers, all those things.
Toilets.
Costing
mobile toilets.
Costing 6 million. And you know what are they doing? They are coming to give gifts, presents to people who have graduated in a certain training that the county sponsored. First of all, the sponsorship of the whole thing costed 1.5 million. The people who have graduated are being fitted at a cost of 6 million. Oh, how do we? And at that point in time, mothers who have just given birth are sharing beds. And you think we are doing well in devolution. If you look at a county which receives say 10 billion annually, and you go to that county, you will not find a project that is done to completion costing 200 million. 200 million. Nothing.
So
they want to do small little projects that individuals say, tumefanyiwa, tumesaidiwa, tumenunuliwa sijui hatcheries, tumenunuliwa sijui zile vitu za nywele. The one for saloon equipment, wengine sijui wamenunuliwa umbrellas for the market, and so when they are selling, you see, that is small jobs for NGOs.
One of the
we
things
expect the government to create an environment where people can prosper. The government is not in the business of giving people loans or money to start businesses. It is to create an opportunity for those businesses to be done.
One of the things that is extremely appalling, obscene, uncultured, and unacceptable is when these MCAs and governors, including and also members of the National Assembly, they use public resources for these projects, and then they've got giant billboards with their images.
What are giant billboards? In my own county, a week ago, a whole radio station was in the county the whole day talking about launching a project. In the county whole day, broadcasting from the country, broadcasting the governor and his officials and her officials live. And people are walking on the road talking to themselves because they can't meet their daily costs. And people are being taxed, say, border people. You tax them, these are people who buy fuel. In that fuel, there is road maintenance levy. In that fuel, there is VAT. In that fuel, there's duty. These people buy. That means those people have fully paid their taxes for whatever reason. So if I am riding on the roads, I've paid road maintenance levy as a border. So I agree the national government should tax me because I pay that. But why is the county government taxing me for riding a border on roads they don't maintain? Roads that are maintained by the national government, who has already taxed me and has already submitted their share of that money to Kera, Kura, and Kena, and also tarmacked roads in the town. And then I go bragging that, we collected on, there's no on revenue. That revenue is money collected from the people at on-source revenue. Nobody has on-source revenue as a county. What investment does these counties have that they should collect money from people and call it on-source revenue? Say we have taxed our people this amount.
You seem to be very emotional on this on-source revenue.
I don't want to hear on-source revenue in counties. A county that should talk of on-source revenue is a county that has built a factory and that factory is making profit. A county that should talk about on-source revenue is a county that has invented in something that is giving that profit. That profit is what I would accept to be called on-source revenue. But when you tax already taxed people and call it on-source revenue is to take people for granted.
And finally, as we come to the close, last week the High Court gave the IEBC selection committee the green light to go ahead and get commissioners. And when you look at the timelines, we may end up having a fully functional or constituted IEBC by end of February. But the question remains, how did we as a nation accept to have this huge vacuum that we don't have a functional IEBC? There are many areas, be it at the MCA level, National Assembly, that are not represented simply because we don't have an IEBC. How did we miss? Did we miss the boat? Did we miss the memo?
We didn't miss anything. You remember, immediately after election, Azimio went onto the streets, demanding, telling us that, sijui fungua server, sijui the election was rigged, sijui IEBC, sijui what, all those many things. Of course, in such an atmosphere, you cannot go and start appointing new IEBC commissioners. At that point in time, we had a law that President Uhuru Kenyatta used to appoint the Cherera for, if you remember. There was. And nobody complained. President William Ruto was going to be a candidate in that election, but never complained. In fact, I remember him saying, bring any commissioner, even if the chairman is then Oburu, I would still beat him. I remember that. So if you are a candidate, or you are going to be a candidate, and we have an elaborate system of protecting votes like the one we have in Kenya, where you vote everywhere as an agent, and from the point where voting takes place, the results are submitted to where you also have agents. What do the commissioners have got to do with any rigging? They will only announce those results. But then we could not let the president appoint new commissioners the same way Uhuru did. So, being the good president with which he is, he accepted that, okay, let's go with your NADCO report and have new commissioners. The moment he accepted that, somebody again ran to court. All these are being done, but it is him who is being blamed. It is not the president who went to court to stop the process of appointing new commissioners. It is not the president. And when the president don't obey court, again we will complain. So he has chosen to obey the courts and chosen to let you make as much noise as you want, but he maintains law and order and protects the constitution the way he promised. Now going forward, we are going to have that new
The IEBC selection committee.
The IEBC selection committee, and we are going to have IEBC. And I am sure some people are also going to complain. I don't know who they want to do this job. The president is William Ruto. He's the only one who can now finally appoint these people after that selection committee has done it. And that will not give him an advantage. Even if we use the one Uhuru Kenyatta used, it would not give him an advantage. He would win because he has the people.
What did you make of the NADCO reports? Because one of the byproducts is this IBC, the amendment legislation, which has provided for those commissioners. IBC, in my view, also had very good objectives on strengthening the institutions we have here in Kenya and systems of governance, and also creating an all-inclusive leadership so that all Kenyans feel Kenyans. The obtaining situation in Kenya today, the one of winner takes it all, works very well in the US. But in Kenya, there's a feeling that winner takes it all doesn't serve the interest of, I'm not using Morai anymore, does not serve the interest of Anyango.
First of all, we must accept that NADCO report was not necessary at that point in time, though some few good things came out of it. Some of the things that were in NADCO report also have been overtaken by events.
Like which ones?
I think there was some equitable appointment that was wanted there.
And addressing the economy.
Of resources. And again, there were some which were just subjective. Improve the economy, lower taxes, again, and so on. When you talk
But the critical ones were, like, for instance, the establishment of the office of the Prime Minister and the opposition leader.
But again, from the current constitution, establishing the office of the opposition leader would not be necessary, because in the assembly, there is the minority leader. That is enough.
But the minority...
Because of the system of government we have.
The minority leader will not have a sufficient or necessary or requisite political capital to take on the president.
That person who has that political capital will do it.
From
anybody taking
outside or inside parliament?
Anybody taking on the president from inside parliament must be in parliament, and it is only in parliament where you should be able to take on the president. You are not going to go to public rallies to take on the president. I think that is getting it wrong, and I think it is doing the wrong thing. That is mismanaging the country. We must have a country where the rule of law prevails.
But NADCO wanted to use the model in France, our neighbor down the road, Tanzania, where you accommodate the big political forces after an election.
I want to tell you that since 1992, each time after an election, the losers would demand for review of certain laws in this country. And the demand has not been peaceful. And the demand has never been using convincing language. They have always used violent language, going to the streets, political rallies, inciting people and so on. It has always been like that throughout. It is time now we learn to demand things lawfully and peacefully, and not because somebody has lost an election or somebody has not been served well by an existing law, so he wants one that would favor him in the future. You know, there was a time after the second election, there was something called kitu ya ufungamano.
One of Tavamsimi.
Yes. We went there, and political parties contributed to people who are becoming commissioners of the Electoral Commission, and that's how we did it. But again, that was because some people were shallowly thinking that the commissioners were having a big hand in an ability to regulate in the outcome. But that is not the case. Even now, these commissioners, like those ones you saw standing at Serena and even the other two, they didn't know what was going on because they are technocrats there. And those technocrats are governed by rules and regulations and watched by agents from candidates.
So if the commissioners have no idea of what is happening at IBC, Why do you have that big number of commissioners?
Just the same way judges have no idea what is happening in crime scenes.
Is that a good comparison, really?
The evidence is brought to them. Those commissioners would not go to polling stations, tallying stations to check what is going on. That is not even their work. Their work is well cut out. So let us not think that the commissioners have some power to rig an election. They don't have it. This election system has been made so watertight that anybody claiming Yake was rigged, it has to be rigged at the voting level or before the voting. And in such circumstances, that is why every political party needs to have their agents on the ground well before the election date.
Trained agents.
Trained agents. This idea of you have agent that you have procured for only 2 days, the date of voting and the date of counting, is why we keep complaining. Your agent should be there a week before. They have seen the arrangement at the polling stations, the polling centers. They know who will preside over what. They know how things will be done. Training must be necessary. We went to an election the last time that we did not even have proper training for the losing candidate. The losing candidate did not have even his own tallying center and did not have even his own results. And we were complaining that there was rigging.
In other words, what IEBC must do is to create predictable systems for unpredictable outcomes.
It's already created by law. It is already created.
What have they inspired confidence?
Inspiring confidence.
So that when they make the pronouncement, nobody can actually say, no, I don't trust that announcement.
In a country like ours, where some people are only willing to listen to certain politicians, there's no amount of confidence you will create in them. Let me tell you, these things you believe in today, there are certain politicians who will tell people they are wrong, and they will believe it without question.
Is that limited to Kenya? Because even one of the candidates in the US, Donald Trump...
Limited to Kenya or not limited, it is the truth. That the government may want to create confidence in the people, may want to tell these people, we have seen that government enterprises, be it KQ, be it sugar millers, be it those hotels that were under tourism, all of them don't succeed, don't make profit, but the private ones do. So let's go to public-private partnership to have the private sector manage them and share with us the profit. The politicians will tell them that is wrong. Take, for example, sugar millers. The government has been used to bailing them out. After a year or two, they are down again. The government bails them out. After a year or two, they are down again. But when you try to privatize the sugar millers, the people don't accept.
Is it the people or some cartels and special interest groups?
The politicians are hired by these interest groups, and they don't want it. They don't want that kind of... When the private is managing business, those businesses thrive.
Yeah, because they're efficient and effective.
Yes. So, for example, these sugar millers, I tell them the best thing to do, I am not saying you sell the factories and the land to the private sector, because the people also fear, they fear corruption in the sale. Let's lease it to them. And when you lease it out to the private sector, like we are leasing the projects in Ketrako to Adani, first, there will be jobs will be created, because whenever an enterprise is making profit, is vibrant, there are jobs for the people of Kenya. There will be taxes collected by the government of Kenya. Say we mill sugar, enough for us to export. Even if we don't export, even here, because as it is now, we are always importing deficit. So there will be taxes paid.
Although the Minister of Agriculture recently issued a report, and they said they are doing very well in matters of
yes. So production. The moment all those things are done like that, jobs will be created, revenue will be earned, sugarcane farmers will have somewhere to sell their sugarcane and get money. But if we leave it to the government, the officials will eat the money and the millers will collapse. And here we are stuck with people who need jobs. We are stuck with people who need somewhere to sell sugarcane. We are stuck with an inability to collect revenue from the sugar industry.
As we come to the close of the show tonight, what is your prediction next week on Tuesday when the High Court meets? And don't give a prediction if your crystal ball is broken.
My prediction is simply Rigathi is going to go home sooner than he expected or we expected.
So if for some reason
is going to be sworn in, because whatever the reason these people went to court that it should not be sworn in can be dealt with fast and furious, so that we have a DP. We cannot continue having a country without a DP because one person wants to accuse me of murdering him but still wants to walk by my side. I think that is not right.
If Mr. Rigathi Gachagua was to call you, okay, probability of that happening is 0. So would you give him unsolicited advice?
I told him long time ago, even before the National Assembly completed, from where I sat, I saw he was going to go home. So I told him, resign so that in 2027, you can choose which seat to run for. But if you are impeached, you will not be able to choose which seat to run for. And also when you go to a fight, remember your opponent also has a punch. And you may not feel the weight of that punch until it lands on your face. When he went to all these things, he did not realize the people who want him out are also having a punch. So as we said today, I think if I were him, I would throw in the towel and start a new political dispensation. Whether I want to run on my own, whether I want my own new political party, whether I want to join any other team for 2027, he should be starting it now so that we know who are our opponents. We also want to know who are our opponents.
You remember the former president Daniel Arap Moi had a secret weapon that he used to call elections at his pleasure. So probably Mr. Rigathi Gachagua doesn't want you to know his opponents. But thanks a lot for creating time for this show. That has been Fireside, the home of politics, policy, and polity. Hope that you will create time for us next week. Asante sana.
Thank you, my brother.